welcome back to Oma Irmgard's kitchen. Now, I may have mentioned this before, so my grandmother, grandmother Irmgard, she's still alive, she's still with us at 98, taught me baking, cooking, anything to do with the kitchen, and quite a bit more outside of the kitchen as well. So this is one of her favorite recipes, not so much mine, but hers. And I come to like it because it is fairly easy, or for me, fairly easy to make. And it again has one of my favorite ingredients in it, quark. Here you go, quark. And the reason why it's so easy to make is because basically all ingredients get mixed together, put in the baking tin and baked. So, and these days we can just use you know, kitchen machines and things. We don't have to do it all by hand. So it just makes it so much easier. Back in the day, when my grandmother first taught me how to make this cake, it was all done by hand. And I think if she would still be baking, she would, you know, still make it by hand. So this is the next one in the series of quark-based cakes that I'm trying to, you know, translate from old German into German and from there into English and share with everybody, and hopefully include some of the ingredients that we can find here in New Zealand and hopefully other countries as well. So for today we need a kg, 1 kilogram of quark. So that's 2 of these types. I've mentioned this before. So quark essentially is a kind of a fresh cheese, which is why most people would call this a cheesecake or a baked cheesecake. It's not quite a cheese, because you can achieve quark just by letting milk go sour. So you don't even need to add any culture, what you have to do for cheese or rennet or anything like that. You can just let it go sour and it will turn into quark. And the liquid that's left over is buttermilk. Funny. So 1 kg of quark, 5 eggs, put those down here, you can't see it out of shot. And then I've already liquidized 230 grams of margarine. You can use butter, but I would suggest then use a little less, maybe just 200. And then there's another ingredient that you may not be familiar with, depending, you know. So in here I've emptied a pack of semolina. Now in New Zealand, I believe we only get one type of semolina. You can find it in the supermarket now, but back when I moved here it was more specialty shops. Now I bought this one back from Germany, where you can get 2 different types of semolina, a fine and a coarser one. And I prefer the coarser one for a lot of reasons, but so in the cake in particular I find it, you know, kind of nicer, but you know, the fine one works fine. So we need 5, you know, tablespoons of semolina, right? We need some baking powder, just about a tablespoon as well. I already mixed that in with my 220 grams of sugar and about a tablespoon of vanilla sugar. If you don't have vanilla sugar, you can use vanilla bean paste, yeah, that sort of thing. And then there's a couple of optional things. I prefer currants. You can use raisins, you can leave them if you have people who don't like it. And then the other optional ingredient is you know, a lemon zest and juice. You don't have to have it, but I kind of, it sort of gives it a nice sort of thing. And a pinch of salt, of course. Did I mention the baking powder? Yes, I did. I mentioned the baking powder, a tablespoon baking powder. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to push the quark through a sieve. I've mentioned it in a couple of other cakes before. That is more or less to, you know, smooth it out first thing, and also to aerate it, so it will, you know, sort of absorb, you know, the baking powder and all the other ingredients just a bit more freely, less lumpy kind of thing. So we do that first. So you really, you know, you can use a spatula or a spoon or whatever you want to use, and just sort of press it through a sieve, and you can see it's coming out like little tiny little spaghetti at the bottom. So that's you do that with both of those packs, or in whatever size they come. If they come in smaller packs and you need 3 or 4, then that's it. As long as it's a kilo of quark. Right here, so that's all done. You can see this looks like a little spaghetti. Now you can see, you know, that this is basically now all aerated, and it's sort of almost doubled the volume of this. You know, if you can think, these 2 packs are in here now. So while it's still not on the machine, I just put a bit of you know, a bit of lemon zest in, and then I put the juice in later on. So these are spray-free lemons out of the garden, so you know, it just needs a little bit. It doesn't even need a lot. If it's too liquidy, by the time I'm finished with all the other ingredients, I may decide not to put the lemon juice in. That's why I don't put it in right away, just in case. There you go. So quark and lemon always goes well together. Right. I'm using the sort of a light dough attachment that comes with this mixer. You can use, you know, the like a normal dough mixer. I wouldn't recommend you know, the one that you use for pavlova, etc., because it might not be strong enough. Right, so we give this a quick mix before we add the next liquid thing, which would be the eggs. Does look like cream cheese, doesn't it? Right, so 5 eggs, whole eggs. Pop them in one by one. Give it a good mix after each one of them. Perfect. Rightio, have a look. So just take it a bit off the sides. This dough attachment is actually meant for, you know, that sort of creamier kind of mixes. So it actually scrapes the side of the bowl anyway. So it doesn't need much in terms of pulling it down. So we've got most of the wet ingredients. Now it's time, oops, no, this one, to add our dry ingredients. So 5 tablespoons of semolina. Now what most people associate semolina with is pasta. You know, Italian pasta is frequently made with semolina. It's kind of so it's not gluten-free. Semolina is made from wheat. And so what the semolina does is kind of absorbs all the liquid in the cake, and that instead of flour. And that kind of makes, that's why we use it in a lot of other dishes as well. And so that will make the cake rise as well a little bit. Obviously the baking powder will help. So the semolina goes in, and that's the sugar, baking powder, salt and vanilla sugar. Pop it all in and give it a good stir. Rightio, I think this is liquid enough, so I don't put the lemon juice in, but I do put some of these currants in, because that's the way I like it. If you don't like it, currants, well, they're similar to raisins, but they kind of hold their shape a little bit better, especially when baked. Raisins kind of have a softer skin and then they fall apart. And then what you do is you add your liquid margarine in as well. Actually, I'll give this a slight mix first and then slowly add it in. Righty-ho. And that's it. So, you know, as I said, it's a cake that, you know, my mother and my grandmother both, they get a call in the morning and someone says, oh, I'm coming to visit you this afternoon. And then they whip this one up in the morning, and by the time the guests arrive for coffee and cake, typical Saxon or German thing, coffee and cake in the afternoon. So by the time the guests arrive, for that the cake is cooled down and is ready for the table. So while I was doing this, I was preheating the oven to 160 degrees, and with wet cakes like this you probably want them in there for about an hour, and you know, check it after maybe 40 minutes for the first time and see if a skewer, if you pop it in, comes out clean. Every oven is different, so that's a sort of a ball figure. 160. And if you have kids, they can lick this piece here, or husbands for that matter. There we go. And then the only other thing that's left to do is give it another bit of a stir, so all the things from the side. So I've greased a pan. Now you can put it in straight like that, or you can put a little bit of the semolina in. You can do this, by the way, for any cake that I make. My grandmother always used to do that. So you grease it with some margarine or oil or whatever you prefer, or butter, and then you put some semolina or breadcrumbs in the tin, see, and then you roll it around in here. And make sure you get all the sides, and whatever is left over you can dump in your cake. That little bit extra won't hurt. Right, give it another bit of a stir. And that way it won't stick to the sides. Now you can, I know a lot of people here in New Zealand in particular, they line the cake tin with baking powder paper. That's a possibility too. So that's really up to you. And then all there's left to do is just dumping it all. Hang on, arm shot. There we go. Dumping it all in. You see, it's quite a wet mixture, and it will rise probably a little bit above the cake rim. That's okay, and it might crack a little bit at the top because that's what these liquid cakes sometimes do. That's all perfectly normal. And if you could smell this, the lemon comes through, lemon zest in here. And the vanilla as well. So there you go. Pop a photo of the cake at the end of the video. Thank you everybody who's supporting this little project of mine to get this cookbook, bake book published. So my grandmother's recipes live on. Rightio. So, here we go. Nearly done. So that's it. So this is called, I didn't even mention it at the beginning, did I? So this is called a Quarkkuchen ohne Boden. So ohne Boden means without a base. So most other cakes that I've shown so far have some sort of base, either a yeast base or a crumble, something like that. This one doesn't have a base, so it's really just a mixture of the quark, the semolina, the eggs, and the sugar, and a few other bits and pieces. And then it's baked at 160 for about an hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on your oven. And it's damn yum. You can, when it's finished, you can dust it a little bit with icing sugar or normal sugar, and you know, a dollop of cream or yogurt goes well with it, trust me, sort of, you know. You can vary the amount of sugar and margarine as well. So if you want it less sweet, put a little bit of less sugar in, or if you want it sweeter, put a bit more in, that kind of thing. But the main ingredient is the quark, 1 kg, and the eggs, 5 eggs, and the semolina. So those are the, you know, so those are the main ingredients, and the rest, it's just easy peasy. You can vary it. Anyway, happy baking.